From New York, Lower Manhattan to be specific, it's AFA Today each weekday here in the belly of the news-making beast. And in fact, if you're watching on the AFA channel, that site of the Wall Street Bull, that's not even 200 yards from the studios where we are now. And if you ever come to Lower Manhattan, that's the Bull on Wall Street. Anyway, we're glad to be with you. Happy Friday to you. It's a beautiful day, at least in our part of the country. Polar vortex is coming back. So I hope that it will not be overly cold where you are, but we are certainly glad to have you with us. We're talking about the president's speech today as he addressed the nation, said, look, this spying stuff, this information, look, I know it's on everybody's mind. I know that everybody's freaked out about it. I know that it's all a big worry, but let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to keep doing it. We might store it in a different place, and I'm not telling you anything else. Well, you don't believe me? Here, take a listen.
Second, just as ardent civil libertarians recognize the need for robust intelligence capabilities, those with responsibilities for our national security readily acknowledge the potential for abuse as intelligence capabilities advance and more private information is digitized.
Man, I love the way he just makes this rocket science. Yes, we have threats to our information, and we have threats to our security. And we're not stopping anything. But let me use a lot of words in a short period of time to make you think that I'm saying something like, we're gonna stop doing what we're doing. The president loves to hear the sound of his own voice. I just get that feeling. It's just, the more, and like I said, it doesn't matter what speech he gives. It's always the same speech. It's always the same intonation, the same reflections. Anyway, 888-589-8840. The long and the short of it is, yes, he's very vexed about the security leaks. He's very concerned that the government is stealing 200 million text messages from Americans each day. He's very concerned that the phone metadata system has been stored at the NSA. He's not going to stop stealing the messages or monitoring the phone calls or storing them. He's just not going to let NSA store them anymore. He might now open it up to some other firm because that's going to be so much better with the express intended purpose that he can still access it at any time that he feels it's necessary if it's in the best security interests of the country. We didn't hear one substantive thing being said today about the genuine violation of the American people's basic right to privacy in their basic communications on a daily basis. Not one. Not one proposal that addressed the true concern of what Americans, other than trust me. We're obeying the law. Just trust me. Just trust me. Because, you should just trust me. Actually, I think he forgets that he works for us. I think he forgets that he's actually our employee. I think he forgets that we hired him. Frustrates me. I know it does. 888-589-8840. All right, let's let you weigh in on this. Let's talk to Frank in Arkansas. Frank, you're up next. Hi, welcome. You're on with Kevin McCulloch. So glad you're here. What are your thoughts?
Well, I find it interesting that he prefaced all his remarks by listing the enemies of the United States. So, am I to assume that you and I are now an enemy of the state? And the gathering of all of this metadata is equivalent to stop and frisk. It's simply lazy police work. They're not pursuing a particular target. They're trolling, hoping to find a little bit of information that may lead to other information, as opposed to actually getting out, putting the boots on the street and doing the police work like they're supposed to.
Yeah,
and infringing on our private communications.
No, well, I agree with that, and it is trolling. Although you had people saying 9/11 happened because there wasn't anybody paying attention, and for what it's worth, stop and frisk is an effective program. Stop and frisk is the opposite of what you're describing, Frank. Stop and frisk doesn't troll people. Stop and frisk that you actually profile and you say that guy looks like he's wearing something funny on the back of his pants there. If that's a gun, let's pull him over. And in like around schools and places here in New York where they've used it, it has plummeted the crime rate in a huge way. And oh, by the way, if they happen to stop you and you're carrying a firearm legally, just show them the license. It's not a big deal. But if you're not a legal owner of the firearm, it's done wonders. My concern is the new Bolshevik mayor of my city is going to do away with this completely. We're going to see crime skyrocket, and what has been the safest big city in the world may not be that for much longer. We'll just have to wait and see. 888-589-8840. The president this morning talking about the NSA concerns. 200 million text messages, this just being released in the last day, 200 million text messages being stolen, being copied, being eavesdropped on, being given to NSA from your provider every single day. 200 million text messages every day. Your thoughts about the president's proposed solutions, which as best as I can tell is we're not going to stop doing any of these programs. We're just going to not let the NSA store the material that they've harvested. I don't know where we're going to store it. He didn't tell us where he's going to store it. I don't know. Maybe he's going to put it on a plane to Syria like Saddam Hussein did with the weapons. I'm not sure. But there's some place that they're going to continue to do this. They're going to need to store it. You privatize it? Well, if you do that with a certain degree of vetting, I guess that could be a safe way to go. But I don't think there's any guarantee. Look, if Target stores can't keep track of some 40 million credit card numbers, names, and purchases that happened in the month of December, as a private organization who's supposed to be offering credit card security to the customers that come and buy the stuff from their stores, what makes you think that there is a private organization that's going to be able to get this right? And by the way, every one of us signing up for Obamacare, we're just feeding the beast. We're just putting more info in there. 888-589-8840. Let's go to Jennifer in Indiana. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCulloch. So glad you're with us.
This is the first time on your show, so...
Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks. I wanted to say that I do agree a lot with what Frank just said, but I was a little surprised by your response to him about pulling people over just because they might have a gun. That wasn't the purpose of my call, but that kind of surprised me, just because they might...
Well, why did it surprise you, Jennifer?
Well, as a licensed gun carrier,
Right.
police officers can find that information just by looking up your license plate number.
Right, but you're in Indiana. You're not in New York. You don't understand the context. Let me try to explain it to you.
Okay.
In the neighborhoods where they have been using stop and frisk for the last 15 years, because it was a Mayor Giuliani crime enforcement technique that he brought in, and it cleaned up the streets of New York. There were gangs running amok. There were all kinds of problems, people getting mugged in what should have been relatively safe neighborhoods, et cetera, because there wasn't any control. When the police were empowered to, at any point in time, stop someone because of a suspicious element that may be on their person or the way they were walking or something else, all of a sudden guns started disappearing off the streets, and suddenly you didn't have, rounds and rounds of violent crime anymore. And it became, New York at that time, and after it had suffered through some pretty bad reputations in the decades previous, became the safest big city in the world because of this aggressive policy that just said to gang members, you get caught carrying a weapon, we're going to take you in. And it's not. It was never intended to deal with law abiding, because law abiding people that carry their weapons, they carry them in a certain way, and most of the time they're not going to be the ones hanging on the street corner with something funky looking out from beneath their jacket or whatever. In New York, it worked, and it worked really, really well. This current communist mayor that we just brought in wants to do away with all of that and wants to just turn a blind eye to gang members carrying guns on the streets.
Yeah, I guess I'm not entirely sure. I'm on the fence post about it again, probably because I'm not familiar with the local issues there. But the original reason why I called was that I don't understand why there's not a public outcry right now to Obama and the administration, or even to the potential public holders that he's saying he's going to pass the NSA information on to. Okay, like, say Google, they have the capacity to hold this information. Why is there not a public outcry to these private people saying, do not take this, do not do this, or we're just going to, whatever we can do legally, everything within our legal means, obviously, we're going to shut you guys down if you do this. It's not about what the government knows or what we want the government to know. It's about the government it's none of their business. They shouldn't know unless, again, going back to your particular story in New York, maybe something localized would be different, but on a major scale, obviously it's not their right to know. It's not whether we want them to know or not. And I just don't understand, as a 30-year-old, why my generation is not just outraged at this and there's not a public outcry.
That's a great question, company. Jennifer, and I think part of it deals with this element of your generation. I think there's a great deal of exhibitionism in people under 30 in this world today. They can't go 2 seconds without barfing every thought that's in their mind onto Facebook, telling the whole world things that we would never tell anyone a generation ago.
I agree.
And they leave it all out there. And I think there's this kind of like missing filter between what should be public and shouldn't. And the easier that technology has gotten to use these different things, the more, and I think people don't really realize how much information they have given up. But it's just not a part of the people that are under 30s thinking. It's not a part of their way of thinking to think, oh, someone could use this against me. I think this has opened people's eyes a little bit, but you still don't see a massive movement against it because I think people feel powerless as to know how to respond back to it. One thing I would advise everyone, don't sign up for Obamacare. I don't care if it's the law or not. Don't sign up for it. Go try to find insurance in any other way possible, but don't put yourself into that system. You put yourself into that system, you risk your entire bank account, everything about your history, everything being in one centralized location. And if Target can lose 40 million credit card numbers and authorization codes, the federal government can easily lose all of the data that's in Obamacare.
You're absolutely right. My husband and I do not have insurance at the moment, and we're either going to find outside insurance or we're just going to pay the tax. We're not going to sign up for Obamacare. We've paid our medical bills out of pocket for 5 years, and
there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have done that, and they prefer to.
And we're lower class. We're not even middle class. It's not, we don't have cable, we don't have television, we don't have cell phones. Get your priorities straight and pay your medical bills and act like a responsible adult. And I don't think that's too much to ask.
Jennifer, I think you are a very wise and godly person, and I'm just so impressed that you have such a good head on your shoulders, because your generation does not lean to those inclinations naturally. They very much go in a different direction. So you're really like the 2% swimming upstream against the 98%, and that means you're going to be in great shape at the end of the day. 888-589-8840. What we are talking about is the president came out 2 hours ago, 45-minute speech, saying to the nation, look, I've heard you. We know you're all ticked about the NSA spying. We know that it hasn't been something that you've approved of. We know all of this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw a lot of fancy words at you, and then I'm going to say, so I'll store it somewhere else, and I'm not going to stop doing any of it. I reserve the right to go back to any of it, look up any of it anytime I need to, because there's going to be certain times when I'm going to need to do that for national security interests. And then he even went further. There were some things that he said in the speech about how, and we're going to make sure that we don't treat our best allies this way. People that are working with us, we won't spy on them either, unless we absolutely have to. I mean, it was almost like every single affirmative statement he tried to make, he immediately followed it with a backdoor of, I can get out of that for free. And then he tried to compare us to China and Russia. in some sort of favorable light. Well, at least in this country, we're allowed to know if somebody's spying on us, and we voice our dissent. In China and Russia, they don't even get to dissent. They don't even get to give their opinion about their surveillance techniques. By the way, in forms of government in both of those nations in the past that he has idolized greatly, he's criticizing them or comparing us to them in some way. That was a little surreal for me. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. I know a lot of you want to weigh in on this. Let's get to Brent in Louisiana. Hi, Brent. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCulloch.
Hey, Kevin. How you doing? Hey, look,
Good.
You haven't even got to the best part of the speech yet. He put James Clapper and Eric Holder in charge of getting back to him within 60 days to figure out where they're going to store this. Clapper, that's the director of National Intelligence. He's the one that lied to the Senate Intelligence Committee, got caught in a bald-faced lie about collecting metadata. And then poor old Eric Holder, he's the one in contempt of Congress, still over Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
So scandalous that he had to have the executive privileges to protect them. These are two of the most untrustable people on the planet. So it just begs the question, Obama, are you serious?
Well, and that's the thing. And thank you, Brent. A good observation. This is the thing that continues to come back to me. Why are we always reacting to everything? Is there no premeditated plan to protect the American people in advance of implementing something like this? And it doesn't appear that there is. It appears that we're walking around going, I'm not sure. 888-589-8840. Your reaction to the president's speech saying he's going to take your concerns about your security seriously when we continue. On AFA Today, I'm Kevin McCulloch. This is AFR Talk.